Okay, Spike, use Razor Leaf. What? Pokémonicon. Play me.
Hey everyone, Mah-Dry-Bread here. It has been a number of years since I began excavating the Mountain of Moon. I believe I have made a significant find in the Mount Moon Caves. A volume of ancient Cantonian burial practices and funerary incantations. It has been entitled Pokémonicon, roughly translated, Book of Paraspectre. The first few pages warn that these enduring creatures lie dormant, but are never truly dead. It is through recitations of these passages that the Paraspectre are given license to possess the living.
Contra a mischievous omen, pincer mens and sobar, passimane, orta, desir, gan diorsa, canto, canto.
Hey, Spike. What's wrong?
Awaken us from our ancient slumber. One by one we will take.
What are you doing? Oh wow, Mega Man. That gives me an idea. Oh, hey Spike.
So check this out, my friends. It's that special time of year for another TCG challenge, the Mega Man Challenge. What is the Mega Man Challenge? Why, it's actually an idea that I came up with myself. I mean, it's probably been thought of before because it's not that unique of an idea, but I did think of it myself without reading about it online, so I'll take credit for it until I'm proven wrong. If you aren't familiar with Mega Man games, you play as a humanoid robot with an arm cannon named Mega Man. You are sent by Dr. Light to go destroy the robot masters that were reprogrammed for evil by Dr. Wily in each of their designated levels, all having their own signature weapons and abilities. Once you defeat a robot master, you obtain their ability that is strong against at least one other robot master. For example, defeating Bubble Man gives you the Bubble Lead weapon, which is strong against Heat Man. Really not too dissimilar to Pokemon. Basically, every Mega Man game works this way, and there are a ton of them, with new robot masters to fight each time. And in each game, Mega Man starts with his simple Mega Buster, yellowish white pellets that do minimal damage. So now you're probably like, Paraspectre, what in God's name are you talking about? You're going off on these delusional tangents like you always do. But the super smarties in the audience already know where this is going. I attempted my own Mega Man challenge when I played through Shining Pearl for the first time. I began with my starter, and once I beat the first gym, I inherited, or unlocked, one of the gym leader's Pokemon that I could go catch and add to my team, and did the same for each gym victory, trying to replicate how it goes in Mega Man as closely as possible. After the 8th gym, I was left with 9 team options, therefore 3 didn't make the cut. So the Mega Man challenge implemented into the trading card game works like this. I will begin the game using only a normal type starter. In this case, I'm choosing Rattata and Raticate. That was the one thing I wish I changed in my Shining Pearl game. Picking an early game normal starter is more akin to the Mega Buster rather than using one of the actual elemental starters. Each time I defeat a Clubmaster, I will obtain only one of their signature Pokemon lines to use in my deck, and so on until I take out the Grandmasters. Simple as that. Because of this, there really isn't a pre-challenge discussion for me to go over. I think Rattata and Raticate make the most sense to start with, as Rattata is the earliest pure normal type that you encounter in Red and Blue. So the question I debated on was, how many should I use in the first deck? Using only one Rattata and one Raticate sounds incredibly boring and tedious, so I decided that this deck will always have at least 4 usable Pokemon to make it at least a little more interesting. So I'll start with 4 of each of my rat friends, then each time I introduce a new line, I'll remove one Rattata and Raticate until I'm left with 1 pair. The Pokemon line that I choose to implement into the deck will be up to me on the spot, but I'm going to make sure the types line up with the Clubmaster's specialized type. For instance, Fire Lord Ken has been notorious in my challenges for barely using any fire Pokemon. He literally only has Growlithe, Arcanine, and Magmar for fire types in his deck, so I'm going to choose either Arcanine or Magmar. Chansey or something just wouldn't make any sense. The other asterisk that I want to mention is Rick of the Science Club. Science is not a Pokemon type, but he basically is the Poison type Clubmaster, so I'll be obtaining one of his Poison Pokemon, even though they are grass in this game. As long as they are Poison types normally, it counts. Mewtwo and Porygon are off limits. Gene is kinda the same way, as Rock types are Fighting type cards, and I have not looked into or planned out any of my team beforehand. Also, no takesy-backsies. Once I choose a line, it permanently stays. So that's about it for the rules. I think it will get both easier and more difficult as the challenge goes on. Obviously getting more options will help with the deck, but I will also be using all energy types over time. Not getting the right energies could be a frequently annoying occurrence. Trainer cards like Energy Search will be my friend for this challenge. So since the setup will be crazy easy, I'll just discuss my 2 starters and then do brief rundowns for each team additions as I add them. Rattata is a colorless type with a lowly 30 HP, a weakness to fighting, a resistance to psychic, and a free retreat cost. For a simple 1 colorless, it can use Bite for 20 damage, and that's it. Being able to do 20 with 1 of any energy is excellent, but Rattata cannot take hits. 30 HP is the worst in the game. But Rattata evolves into Raticate, who remains colorless, doubles its HP to 60, has the same weakness and resistance, but gains a retreat cost of 1. It also has the same bite attack as Rattata, but gets a second attack option. For 3 colorless, Super Fang takes out half of the defending Pokemon's health rounded up. That is awesome, but the max damage it could ever do is 60 if I'm against a Chansey, for example. But still, 1 Super Fang followed by Bite makes Raticate a pretty strong attacker, just not with a ton of HP. And because they have a weakness to fighting, I will not be starting in the Rock or Fighting Club, and I can't start with the Psychic Club because you need a certain number of medals first. And just to point out, I don't expect this challenge to be too difficult, but it should be a lot of fun to plan out. Maybe next time I'll cave and try an actual difficult challenge where surely more fun will be had by you than by me. Taking the Charmander in Friends deck, I start with 2 Rattata and 1 Raticate, so it did not take long to get the other 5 cards. Once I got my Rat army, I chose to start at the Water Club. Let's do this. The Lackey trainers were incredibly easy, one of which I took down in 2 turns. On to Amy. And just when it matters most, my luck ran out, as I only drew 1 Rattata and a mysterious fossil. Her Lapras made sure my Mousy got the water hose. Attempt number 2. I once again start with 1 single Rattata against her Goldeen and 1 other, but this time, oh boy, this time I have some options. I go absolutely ballistic here on the first turn. I fire up my Rattata, use up a potion, slam the Oak Man down on the table like I'm taking on Lashif, get another Rattata, use 2 bills, one of which gives me Eradicate, and another bill that I use, and just like that, 33 cards left in my deck. This deck is about slinging those rats quick, baby. Then I proceed to bite down in her Goldeen before Amy can even process what just happened. Eradicate easily knocks out her 2 Goldeen, then she up and evolves her Horsey into Seadra, so this could go south quick. I heal Eradicate as much as I could, take down Seadra, then her Lapras takes out my rat friend. Luckily, I have another on the ready. Boom! I Super Fang that Lapras for 40. Then her Water Gun takes me down to 30, so I make a bold move here. I use a Pokemon Center, sacrificing my Super Fang option. Bite should be all I need at this point. I also have an item finder, so I use that to do the same thing to knock out Lapras and keep Eradicate at full health. In comes Seaking, who ultimately is not a problem, and then, even though she did get a Blastoise on her bench, I simply take down her Wartortle, giving me the Water Medal. Not too bad at all. Eradicate is a legit good Pokemon to start with. But now it's time to make a decision to replace a pair of rats with some Water Boys. My options are Blastoise, Seaking, Seadra, or Lapras. Blastoise would seem like the obvious choice, but it's risky going for a 3-part evolution, given that I can only use one of each. Seaking, Seadra, and Lapras are all fairly quick attackers, but here's what I'm thinking. Blastoise, Seadra, and Lapras all get stronger the more water energies you have in the deck due to the attacks like Water Gun and Hydro Pump. By the end of the challenge, they will be the only water Pokemon I'll even be using, so in a surprise move, I'm going to pick Seaking to add to my deck. Goldeen has 40 HP, a weakness to lightning, and a free retreat cost. For 1 water, Horn Attack just does 10 damage. But Seaking is a solid quick attacker. Seaking has 70 HP, a weakness to lightning, and a 1 retreat cost. Horn Attack is the same, but for 1 water energy and a colorless, Waterfall does 30. 30 damage from 2 energies with decently high HP makes Seaking pretty underrated. So I adjust my deck for 3 Rattata, 3 Eradicate, a Goldeen, and a Seaking. Use all of the water energies and trainer cards that I have, and in true Mega Man fashion, let's use this water advantage against the Fire Club next. After literally 11 redraws against Ken, I finally get a hand with 1 Rattata who proceeds to get knocked out by a single double edge from Jigglypuff. What a waste of time that match was. Attempt number 2. This one was really dumb, and I made some amateur moves here. I went way too hard on drawing cards, and at one point I ended up completely wasting 2 plus powers. I don't know what I was thinking. It was my Seaking against his Arcanine. I used 2 plus powers to hit it with Waterfall for 80 when I didn't really need to do that. It's going down in 2 hits regardless. But I don't think that really mattered in the long run because it eventually got down to my Eradicate against his Chansey and I had 1 prize left. I Super Fanged Chansey for a whopping 60, so if Chansey even attacked with Double Edge, it would have knocked itself out and I would have won. But my deck was way too low and Chansey kept getting successful scrunches, preventing me from attacking it. I actually lost by running out of cards in my deck because of this. Lame. Attempt number 3. Well, I won this one very easily. My Seaking simply took out his Tauros, Chansey, and Magmar. That was it. I did take a Fire Punch at the very end, but that didn't even matter. Fire Metal obtained in a pretty uneventful match. So my only 2 options to add now are Arcanine or Magmar, and both have Flamethrower, which requires me to discard fire energies. I'm ultimately going to go with Arcanine, since even Growlithe has more HP than Magmar does. Growlithe has 60 HP, a weakness to water, and a 1 retreat cost. For 1 fire and 1 colorless, I can use Flare to do 20. Pretty basic. But Arcanine is a beast. Arcanine has a whopping 100 HP, a weakness to water, and a 3 retreat cost. For 2 fire and a colorless, I can use Flamethrower to deal 50, and I discard a fire energy. I won't have many fire energies to waste, so I gotta be careful with this. For 2 fire and 2 colorless, it has Takedown, which does a mighty 80 damage and hits itself for 30. Yeah, Arcanine is good, but both attacks do have some sort of penalty. Thankfully, I already have both Growlithe and Arcanine, so I remove another pair of rats and decide to go with 14 fire energies and only 6 waters. I only really need a single water energy to attack, assuming I avoid energy removals against me. And I just noticed something. I don't have any Gust of Winds. That in itself is a challenge for me. But naturally, the Grass Club shall be next. Just kidding, it's Ronald. I always forget about this complete tool. I really don't care if I win or lose against him. Although, I guess I'll mention that I did win, in case you were wondering. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and let this nerd beat me, even for a lame Jigglypuff card that I'll never use. Okay, Grass Club next. I start with just a Rattata against her Oddish. This could be bad if she gets some paralysis luck. I opt for a turn 1 computer search in order to get Raticate though. I proceed to take out 3 Oddish in a row, bringing me down to 3 prizes left just like that. But I'm getting no other Pokemon at all, so I need Raticate to hold on. I got so lucky with her flipping tails so often from Stun Spore, and I ended up drawing a couple potions. She sacrifices her Bulbasaur, so all that's left is Exeggutor with not many energies to show for it. But I'm still not getting any other Pokemon to use. I get real lucky here with her flipping at least 1 Tails from Big Explosion. I would have lost if she got 2. But I do not take the chance and go for the Oak Man. I obtain my Growlithe, hit Exeggutor with a Super Fang, and spread flares all over her sentient palm tree, giving me the Grass Medal. That was both real close and pretty easy, but I'm fully aware that coin flip luck is what saved me there. So I now have 3 grass options: Venusaur, Vileplume, or Exeggutor. To me, Venusaur is out. It's not the right deck for it. The trio of Oddish, Gloom, or Vileplume would be good, but I'm actually going to go with Exeggutor. It's only a 2-part evolution, and I can take advantage of the grass and psychic energies that they use. Execute has 50 HP, a weakness to fire, and a 1 retreat cost. For a psychic energy, I can use Hypnosis to put the opponent to sleep. For 2 grass, Leech Seed does 20, and I remove a damage counter from Execute. Pretty decent starter. Exeggutor gets 80 HP, a weakness to fire, but a big 3 retreat cost. However, it does have Teleport for 1 psychic energy, which acts as a switch, but its claim to fame is Big Explosion, which does 20 damage for each heads coin flip equal to the number of any energy types on it. That is pretty boss. But it's such a unique evolution line in this, in that grass energies only matter to Execute, and they can both utilize psychic ones, even though they're both grass types. But I don't actually have Exeggutor yet, so I decided to go against some trainer I just met named Matthew to get one real quick. Then I remove another pair of rats, and my deck now contains 1 each of Raticate, Seaking, Arcanine, and Exeggutor, with their corresponding starters. This will be the last time I remove a Rattata and Raticate as well. I think you know who's next. Let's pay old Stony Gene a visit. I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye. So this one went about as well as it always does. To be honest, Growlithe was the one who stayed in the longest. I even had Arcanine in my hand, but didn't bother evolving because of Flamethrower losing fire energies. Once Growlithe went down, my Exeggutor went absolutely ham on his Rockies. I was flipping 7 Jingles at the end there, all doing double the damage per heads flip. So Rock Medal obtained, and that was easy. Now I have a decision to make. Here's the thing. Even though Gene uses Diglett and Dugtrio, they are not rock types, so I'm not counting them as options. And weirdly enough, he doesn't even use Rhydon, so my options are Golem, Onix, or Rhyhorn. And surprisingly, I'm going to pull a Mad Lad move here and pick Rhyhorn. Onix is absolute trash, and only having 1 each of Geodude, Graveler, and Golem requiring 4 fight energies to use Avalanche, I think Rhyhorn is the safer bet, as it's a great stalling Pokemon. I've used Rhyhorn in the past, but it is a fighting type with 70 HP, a weakness to grass, a resistance to lightning, and a 3 retreat cost. For 1 colorless, it can use Leer, which prevents the opponent from attacking on a heads coin flip. For 1 fighting and 2 colorless, Horn Attack does a simple 30 damage. But now things are getting tough. I have to use all energies right now except for lightning. So which club should I hit up next? Why, the lightning one, of course. Isaac has been a rough one in the past, so let's just get this over with. I start with a Growlithe and Execute, and while it's not perfect, I do have Exeggutor in my hand. So Execute it is. I just need more energies. Isaac sends out his annoying Electabuzz. I get Exeggutor out on turn 2, but I only have 1 energy for Big Explosion. I hit it once, and here's where it starts to derail. This stupid Electabuzz channeled the powers of the Paralysis Gods from deep into the latter pages of the Pokémonicon, because this thing would not stop with its successful Thundershocks. And all the while he is powering up a super fun Magneton and Electrode. I gotta take care of these. So I take Thundershock hits over and over with every coconut on the palm tree wincing with horror. I eventually get a successful Pokeball and I have a decision to make here. I could go with Rhyhorn as it's the best Pokemon against this deck, but I'm lacking in fighting energies. I have Raticate in my hand, so I ultimately gank Rattata out of the deck, which may have been a poor choice. Electabuzz finally misses a paralysis flip, so now it's time to explode all over it. But first, the Oak Man, yielding 2 bills and a bunch of energies. I get a computer search and get rid of some energies I won't be needing to get Rhyhorn over here. Exeggutor just barely defeats Electabuzz until getting immediately uprooted by Electrode. I bring in Raticate, who goes down like a punk, but then that's the end of the excitement. Rhyhorn easily runs the rest of the match, horn attacking folks like it owns the place. Way to go, little buddy. Lightning medal obtained. Look at little Surge Jr. Gonna cry? My options now are Electrode, Magneton, or Electabuzz. I'm easily choosing Electabuzz here because I want to be the one to annoy them. But I do have to go find one first. Electabuzz is a lightning type with 70 HP, a weakness to fighting, and a 2 retreat cost. For 1 lightning, we all know what Thunder Shock does. 10 damage and paralysis on a coin flip. For 1 lightning and 1 colorless, however, Thunder Punch does 30, and with a heads flip, 10 more. With a tails flip, Electabuzz gets hit for 10. And now it's getting tricky. I have all energies taking over the deck, so this should get interesting. Only 3 scrubs remain. I think Murray is the next logical choice before we start double dipping in energy types. And this full-on nerd got me into a 16-minute battle because he somehow managed to get an Alakazam on like turn 4, and he proceeded to keep Mr. Mime in the entire time by using Alakazam's damage swap power, which allowed him to constantly heal Mr. Mime every turn by moving damage to Tanky, Chansey, and Kangaskhan. Then he used a Pokemon Center to heal everybody, so I just ran out of cards in my deck. This is the first time in all of these challenges that he was actually able to use his deck's strategy. So I would say it was luck of the draw this time. I suspect a win on this next attempt. It was a bit different this time around, but still a 13-minute battle. I spent a whole 29 minutes of my evening fighting Murray. This is just what I do now. But it honestly wasn't all too exciting. I used Electabuzz for the first half of the battle, Growlithe took care of Mr. Mime, and then Rhyhorn conquered his mighty Chansey, Snorlax, and Kangaskhan army, all late game normies. But it was 13 minutes because he was doing all he could to stall. Psychic Metal obtained, and I only have 2 options to pick from, Alakazam or Mr. Mime. Both are really good options, but yet again I'm going to avoid the 3-part evolutions in favor of a decent solo guy. We all know what Mr. Mime does. Mr. Mime has 40 HP, a weakness to Psychic, and a 1 retreat cost. For 1 Psychic and 1 colorless, Meditate does 10 damage and 10 more for each damage counter on the opponent. So it's weak at first, then a knockout attack. But Mr. Mime's claim to fame is, of course, his Pokemon power. Invisible Wall means only attacks that hit for 20 or less can even hit Mr. Mime. Unless Mr. Mime has any status conditions. Yes, I know. Mr. Mime is a pretty great late game card when your opponent has had a chance to really beef up their team. Only 2 remain, Rick and Mitch. So, Mitch it is. I start with just Execute and a ton of energies. Luckily, 1 is Psychic, so I can at least lead off with Hypnosis. But he opens with Machop and quickly starts kicking my eggs while building a bench. Just like that, I'm down to 10 with no Pokemon left. But then I draw my new buddy, Mr. Mime. What perfect timing. Although Machop is a rough one to be against, since 2 kicks and the Mime is down. Mitch puts my eggs in his basket and gives 1 swift kick to Mr. Mime. This isn't looking good. 2 Meditates do take out Machop though, so he brings in Hitmonlee. Okay. Hitmonlee can't even hit me. But then I see his bench is literally 3 Hitmonlee, so now I understand. Funny enough, he draws a Mankey next, but doesn't retreat for it. My next card, that genius professor himself, Oak. I get a new hand with Electabuzz, Rhyhorn, and a potion. Mr. Mime then goes on a rampage, meditating himself into a coma. Hitmonlee KO'd. Mankey dead. Machop didn't know what happened. Mankey number 2 meditated into oblivion. 1 prize left, but it's a tricky one. Hitmonchan comes in and jabs Mr. Mime right in its clown face. Mr. Mime starts bobbing and weaving, and I unleash a Gusty to bring in a hopeless Hitmonlee. But then it happens. Switchy Mitch uses a switch and jabs Mr. Mime down for the count. Oh my god. No! Are you okay? Say something! I just brought in Rhyhorn who finishes the match, giving me the fighting medal. Heck yeah. Well, that was a fun one. I honestly thought I lost a few times at the start there, but now I get a new teammate. 4 options too. Machamp, Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, or Primeape. Of course I'm going with Hitmonchan though. Hitmonchan is a fighting type with 70 HP, a weakness to Psychic, and a 2 retreat cost. For 1 fighting, Jab does a simple 20. For 2 fighting and a colorless, Special Punch does 40. A very basic but strong solo mon. Is this deck looking too good now? I don't know. We'll see how it goes against the Sacred Grandmasters. But first, I have one final fool to take care of. Science Leader Rick. Murray tells me you're quite the science whiz.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
I start with my new Hitmonchan, and I win by taking only 10 damage from his Grimer. That was probably the most anticlimactic final battle yet. Well, alright. So my only two options are Muck or Wheezing. This is actually a tough call because I think Grimer is the better starting card for this type of deck, but Wheezing is a better option than Muck. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Muck, just because Coughing needing 2 grass energies to attack is worse for this deck than Grimer's 1 of anything. Grimer is a grass type with a weakness to Psychic and a 1 retreat cost. For 1 colorless, Nasty Goo does 10 and paralyzes with a heads flip. For 1 grass, Minimize causes all damage done to Grimer on the next turn to be 20 less. Muck has 70 HP, a weakness to Psychic, and a 2 retreat cost. For 3 grass, Sludge is its only attack, which does 30 and poisons with a heads flip. But it also has the Pokemon power of Toxic Gas, which puts a stop to all other Pokemon powers. That could really come in handy even if I can't attack with Muck due to the hefty 3 grass energies needed. But this here ends my card additions. My final deck going into the Grandmasters, not counting the basic Pokemon, will be 1 each of Exeggutor, Muck, Arcanine, Seaking, Electabuzz, Rhyhorn, Hitmonchan, Mr. Mime, and Raticate. All types are used with an additional grass in fighting as well. I will not be adding more from each Grandmaster as they are like separate bosses. Let's end this. Courtney time. I start with just Hitmonchan and no fighting energies. Rough start. She starts to build up her stupid Moltres army and I'm getting nothing good. Finally, I get my Rhyhorn against her Moltres with Dive Bomb, which means if I used Leer, I would need to flip either a Heads or her to flip a Tails to survive. And I do last for quite a while until she gets the hit, but now I have Mr. Mime. This is an excellent card against this deck because it renders Moltres, Arcanine, and Ninetales basically ineffective. It's her Vulpix with Confuse Ray that scares me, and scared me it did. Fast forward a bit and she's down to 12 cards in her deck and only needs 1 prize left. I get Ninetales down to 20 and can take it out with Raticate, but that wouldn't do me any good. I actually draw my secret weapon next, my old pal Gust of Wind. Oh yes, it's time to summon wind swirling faster than a jet-powered pinwheel. Courtney's Fox got blown away into a brand new dimension, and now her powerless Moltres has to stay in to... Oh, she just used a switch and wins. You know, sometimes I hate this game. At least it was a battle that required a bit of thought on my part. Also, it lasted 18 minutes. Attempt number 2. This one starts familiar with Hitmonchan, except I actually get a fighting energy this time. I proceed to start punching her fire dogs, and this is actually a pretty great start. 1 Growlithe goes down, I get some potions, I get an energy search to be able to do special punch, and things are looking pretty good for old Paraspectre right about now. Boom! 2 Growlies down. But then she uses energy removal to put the Kibosh on special punch. Well, at least I got to use it once. Magmar comes in and decimates my poor Hitmonchan. Well, now what? But then I draw an unexpected welcome guest against this lame fire deck. My Execute. You see, I also have Exeggutor in my hand and a couple double colorless boys. So let's just say, this little tree big exploded all over the rest of her hapless Firemons, giving me 4 more easy prizes. It's kinda ridiculous how good Exeggutor is, but I'll take it. Time to make Thunder Steve go sit in the corner. Or, you know, not. I only managed to get Rattata, who eventually gets one-shotted by Electabuzz. I even used an Oakman and still couldn't get any other friends. Attempt number 2. I start with Rhyhorn, which is absolutely perfect for this deck due to its lightning resistance, and it goes about as well as you'd expect. Rhyhorn didn't take any damage, but the only problem was the 1 Zapdos that he got, which has a fighting resistance. So I simply brought in my fully powered Arcanine to use a single takedown to end Zapdos' life in 1 hit. Then, in excellent comedic fashion, he loses the match from his Electabuzz hitting itself. That had to have been the most embarrassing moment of his life. And that's coming from someone who calls themselves Thunder Steve. Time for Jack. I start with Goldeen and Growlithe. Growlithe is a rough one for all of these water foes, but I open with it since it can actually attack. Jack opens with a Chansey, which is excellent for me. I get a successful Pokeball, but instead of going for Arcanine, I opt for Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime makes his Articuno be of no threat. So I continue to shoot flares all over Chansey's stomach egg, and I remove 2 energies that he sneakily put down on Articuno. Jack does not care about Chansey. Just when Growlithe is about to get an omelet put in its bowl to enjoy for being a good boy, Jack uses a scoop up to bring Chansey back. I will not stand for this. In comes Lapras, who starts to put out my Fire Dog's flares. Growlithe goes down, then Mr. Mime takes out Lapras. In comes Seal, but I utilize the strength of the winds to drag in that powered up Articuno that Jack now has devoted 5 energies to, if you count the ones I removed already. Mr. Mime meditates and Jack gets scared and brings Seal back. Then I draw Rhyhorn, which should help a bit, so I bring it in to preserve Mr. Mime for something other than a hapless Seal. He retreats Seal for Articuno and paralyzes Rhyhorn. Great, thanks. Rhyhorn goes away and he retreats Articuno yet again, now for Lapras. But I say no. Articuno has freeze-dried its last freeze, and I use my last Gusty to knock it out once and for all. Seal comes back, so I retreat for Goldeen because who cares about that? I lose Goldeen, but bring in a now fully powered Hitmonchan thanks to a Fighting Energy draw. My prize? Electabuzz. Oh yes. I knock out Lapras, his Seal knocks out Hitmonchan, so we keep exchanging prizes here. But it's no use for him. My Electabuzz knocks out his Seal and Lapras, giving me the victory. That was actually a really good match. It could have gone either way, especially if I didn't get Electabuzz as a prize. Only Rowdy and Derpy remain, and this challenge is over. The Rowdy match was surprisingly very boring. All he ever used were a few Dratini, a Magikarp, and a Charmander that were of little threat. He did get a Lapras at one point, but I just one-shotted it with Electabuzz, so that was stupid easy. So only one battle is left, and it's Ronald, who I do not care about. So let me just adjust the background a little here, and yeah, there we go. Perfect. Let's finish this. This was pretty amazing. The final battle of the entire game, and I get Execute and Executor on the first draw. Executor wiped out his whole team easily. It wasn't even close. This card is ridiculously cheap. So if it felt like I rushed through the ending there, it's because these were really over in minutes. Like I said, this challenge was meant to be more fun than difficult, and I recommend giving it a shot whether it's in this game or any of the mainline Pokemon ones. I thought I would have more trouble getting the right energies than I did, but literally Ken was the only battle that took more than 2 attempts. But out of the 13 major matches, 8 of them were won on the first attempt. I didn't think the challenge would be that easy, but apparently so. I get that I added some traditionally great cards like Executor, Hitmonchan, and Electabuzz, so maybe it would have been different if I added each new Pokemon at random or something. That's what's fun about it though, you make it as difficult as you want. But it's fun knowing you are adding a new team member each time. Your strategy gets adjusted with each new club master. I'm also currently doing this Mega Man challenge with Pokemon White just as a casual play, and it's making me enjoy the game a bit more. Gen 5 never really did it for me. So yeah, give this idea a shot if you want. And as always, give a glance at my Patreon if you want to support the channel to the max. Otherwise, a sub is incredibly appreciated. My channel has been slowly growing in subscribers lately, and that excites me greatly. The next challenge will be a little while away, but I do have a few ideas.
Hey Spike, what you reading? Oh god, put that away.
What's wrong? I think this is fascinating.
Don't you remember what happened?
What? No.
Spike, you tried to kill me. And I think we summoned the most horrible demon ever seen by human eyes. Or Pokemon eyes.
Hey, wait. Do you hear something?
I think it's coming from the cellar. Spike, quick! Read the last few passages!
Give me the power, I beg of you!
Well, I guess that's over. You wanna go finish that fight against the Ewok?
You do know I can't actually learn Razor Leaf, right?
Can you believe this is actually my 50th video? Pretty crazy, huh?
I don't care, whatever.